My family is calling me selfish for dyeing my hair blonde before my brother's wedding, but if he's a doormat and his fiancée's a toxic control freak, then maybe it's better if I just skip that wedding altogether. Hi. I'm the older of two siblings. My brother is 25, and I'm 27. He was somewhat popular in school because he played football in high school, went to college on a partial athletic scholarship, and now works as a physical therapist. That naturally led my parents to favor him a little more than me. Everyone always talks about how handsome and charming he is, while you could say I've always been more average. As a kid, I was what people politely called a late bloomer. I wore thick glasses, had braces for 3 years, and was socially awkward. I wasn't overweight, which was about the only thing missing, but you could have called me the ugly duckling. Boys in school mostly ignored me. My brother, on the other hand, was popular from grade school onward. He always had friends over, went to parties, and started dating early. My parents never said anything openly negative about my looks, but they couldn't hide how excited they were about his Friday night games. They went to every single one and bought him expensive sports gear. Meanwhile, with me, they went to parent-teacher conferences where teachers praised my grades, and then barely mentioned it at home. The real problem started in high school. My brother began making comments about my appearance, especially when his friends were around. He'd suggest I try contacts or ask why I never wore makeup. At family gatherings, relatives would ask him about his girlfriends and sports, and me about my grades and college plans. The message was clear: his worth came from being attractive and social, mine came from being smart and responsible. College was better for me. I made a few close friends, joined the debate team, and excelled academically. I still looked pretty much the same: glasses, no makeup, conservative clothes. I dated a little, but nothing serious. My brother went to a state university closer to home and kept playing football. My parents visited him regularly, but they only came to see me twice in 4 years, maybe just once, I don't even remember anymore. After graduating, I moved to another state where I found work. My relationship with my family improved, our phone calls were pleasant, and when I visited twice a year, everything seemed normal. Then, last summer, my brother got engaged to his college girlfriend, Daniela, who's 24. She's exactly what you'd expect, blonde and bubbly. I have to say, when they announced their engagement, I was genuinely happy for them. But during my visit for their engagement party, my brother said something that stuck with me. We were alone in the kitchen when he mentioned that Daniela's friends would be her bridesmaids. Then he said Daniela would probably want to do something about my look before the wedding photos, since her side of the bridal party would be very put together. He suggested I get contact lenses and maybe let Daniela help me with makeup and shopping for an outfit. I didn't say much at the time, but that comment stayed with me. A few months later, my company offered to cover laser eye surgery as part of our benefits package. I'd already been considering it for practical reasons, but my brother's comment pushed me to finally do it. The surgery went perfectly, and suddenly, for the first time, I could see clearly without glasses. Around the same time, I got a significant promotion at work. With the extra money, I decided to update my wardrobe. I started shopping at better stores and choosing clothes that actually fit and flattered me, instead of grabbing whatever was on sale. I also began going to a nice salon instead of the cheap chains I used to visit. The biggest change came about 6 months ago. I was walking past a salon and, on impulse, went in for a consultation. The stylist looked at my dull brown hair and said I had a great bone structure, that I was hiding it under the wrong style. 3 hours later, they'd worked a miracle. Well, at least compared to how I looked before, it was a huge change. Without glasses, with the right haircut, and wearing clothes that actually suited me, I looked pretty good. Not model level, but it was a radical transformation. I started dating more seriously, and recently, I began seeing someone I really like. The only problem is, I haven't seen my family since before all these changes. We sometimes video call, but I usually position the camera so they can't see much. I wanted to surprise them at my brother's wedding, thinking they'd be happy to see me looking good. But 3 weeks ago, my mom called. She said Daniela's mom had seen my profile picture. Apparently, she showed it to Daniela, who then showed it to my brother, who showed it to my parents. My family doesn't pay much attention to my social media, they don't even follow me. My mom wasn't happy. She said I looked like a completely different person and that it wasn't appropriate for the groom's sister to outshine the bride. She said my blonde hair would clash with the wedding colors, and that Daniela was worried about the photos. My brother called the next day and said he appreciated that I wanted to look nice for his wedding. But then he asked me what had happened to me. He said Daniela was stressed because I might draw too much attention, especially since some of her relatives would be meeting me for the first time and might think I was trying to compete with the bride. He asked me to dye my hair back to brown before the wedding and to tone down my makeup and clothing. He said family photos were very important to Daniela, and that my new look was too eye-catching. I told my brother I wasn't going to change my appearance for anyone, and if Daniela felt intimidated by how I looked, that was her problem, not mine. It wasn't my insecurity to fix. My brother said I was being selfish and that I'd always been jealous of his fiancée. He even brought up how I'd been quiet and weird during their engagement party, which wasn't true, I was just tired from traveling. Then he said I was finally getting some attention from men and had let it go to my head. I told him I was sick of being treated like the ugly sister who should be grateful for any attention at all. My brother said nobody saw me that way, which is simply not true. A few days later, my parents called me together on speakerphone. They said they understood that I wanted to look nice, but that this wasn't the right time to do it. My mom said that in wedding photos, the bride should clearly be the focus, and my dramatic transformation would be a distraction. My dad said I could go back to being blonde after the wedding if I really wanted to. I felt like I was back in high school again, being told to shrink myself so my brother could shine. But this time, I told them I wasn't changing anything. I said if Daniela was so insecure about her own wedding that she couldn't handle her future sister-in-law looking decent, maybe she should rethink getting married. Now the wedding is 3 weeks away, and my family has barely spoken to me. My brother sent me a message saying that if I show up looking the way I do now, I'd be better off not showing up at all and sparing everyone the trouble. My mom hasn't been much better, she keeps trying to reason with me about why I'm not respecting the bride's wishes. The thing is, I'm not trying to upstage anyone. I just want to look like me, the best version of myself. I worked hard to improve my appearance and my confidence, and now they're asking me to hide it because it makes other people uncomfortable. I'm starting to think maybe I should just skip the wedding altogether. Part of me feels that if my own family can't be happy for me, for finally feeling good about myself, maybe they don't deserve to have me there. So am I really the one in the wrong for refusing to change my appearance for my brother's wedding? Or are they being unreasonable for asking me to look worse just to make the bride feel better? Update January 1st. I should mention that I decided not to change anything about my appearance. Everyone outside my family agreed that the bride and my relatives were being ridiculous about it. It's not like they were asking other guests to go makeup-free just to appease the bride's insecurities. But then, about a week after my post, something happened that completely changed how I see the whole situation. My brother's best friend from college, Fred, contacted me through social media. I know him, but we've never really talked much. He said he wanted to speak with me because he'd heard about what was going on. Apparently, my brother had been complaining to him that his fiancée was driving him crazy over all of this. We ended up having a video call, and what he told me was shocking. Apparently, Daniela had been making comments about me months before she ever saw my new profile picture. Fred said that during my brother and Daniela's engagement party last year, she made several remarks about how glad she was that her fiancé's sister was so ugly, because that would make her stand out more. She even said that when we took family photos together, I'd make her look amazing by contrast. When Daniela saw my profile picture, she had what Fred described as a complete meltdown. She called me a bitch and an attention seeker, and said she wasn't going to allow me to show up looking better than her bridesmaids. She demanded my brother tell me to change everything back, and when he hesitated, she threatened to postpone the wedding indefinitely until he did. Fred said Daniela even spent an entire night at his apartment going through my social media profiles and showing my photos to my brother, pointing out how different I looked and insisting it was all an intentional act of sabotage. Remember how my brother called me jealous of his fiancée? Yeah, those were her words, repeated by my doormat of a brother, desperate to marry her no matter what. My parents also seemed to agree with that version of the story, that I did all this out of jealousy or to irritate my future sister-in-law. But no one mentions, though I know they remember, that my brother was the one who originally encouraged me to improve my appearance. I don't even know anymore whether he genuinely wanted to give me a boost or if that was somehow part of her plan. It sounds twisted, but I honestly don't know what to think about Daniela anymore. Maybe, at first, she thought I'd look bad enough to make her shine in photos. And now that I actually look really beautiful, I can think anything I want about her, because from what I can tell, she's not a very rational woman. Apparently, my family, led by Daniela, had been talking about me for months, painting me as a jealous, difficult person. After talking to Fred, I decided to call my brother directly. I didn't mention Fred at all, but I wanted to have an honest conversation about what was happening. The conversation didn't go well, mostly because it didn't feel like I was talking to my brother. It felt like I was talking through my brother, as if he were Daniela's spokesperson or puppet. She wasn't even on the line, but judging from the way he spoke, it was as if she were feeding him his lines. Apparently, she had convinced him to reinterpret our entire sibling relationship through her perspective. I asked him to give me specific examples of times when I had supposedly been jealous or difficult, and he struggled to name even one. He finally said I'd never seemed excited about his relationship, which wasn't true. I was simply focused on my own life. The more we talked, the clearer it became that my brother wasn't thinking for himself anymore. I ended the call by telling him how hurt I was that he and Daniela had been talking about me, and that it would probably be best if I didn't go to the wedding at all, to spare everyone more drama. My brother said that was probably for the best if I wasn't willing to consider the bride's feelings. So now, with the wedding just a week away, I plan to stay home. I already told my parents I wouldn't attend, and they sounded relieved instead of disappointed. I think it's the best decision right now. They don't want me there, and I don't want to be there. At this point, it's not just the drama, it's that I see no reason to be around people who are so unpleasant. Update 2. The wedding took place 2 weeks ago, and even though I didn't go, the drama still managed to find its way in. People kept asking why I wasn't there, why the groom's sister wasn't watching her brother get married, and that alone created a ripple of gossip. Some people knew the real reason, and it quickly became the rumor of the night. Apparently, my parents told everyone that I was sick, but my aunt, my dad's sister, knew that wasn't the full truth. The real story eventually came out, and by the middle of the night, most of the guests knew that I hadn't gone because of a conflict about my appearance. If that sounds absurd to you, imagine how ridiculous it sounded to everyone at the wedding. And while it wasn't exactly a scandal, it definitely cast a shadow over the whole event. My aunt called me Monday morning, furious that my parents had lied to her face. She knew some parts of the story but not all of it, so I told her the basics, that Daniela and my family had asked me to change my appearance for the wedding, and I'd chosen not to attend rather than cause problems. She was livid. What I didn't expect was for my aunt to then call my parents and tell them they were the most shallow, idiotic people on this planet. She told them they'd been playing favorites with my brother my entire life, and now they were doing the same with his wife, siding with Daniela over their own daughter. She told them they'd regret it, because a pretentious daughter-in-law like that might not always be around, but I'd always be their daughter, or at least I would have been, if they'd ever shown me a bit of love. That phone call started a huge family fight. My parents called me Wednesday night, furious. They said my aunt had no right to interfere in family matters and shouldn't have spread gossip. They said if I'd chosen to be an idiot who cared more about looking good than about attending my brother's wedding, that was my problem. Maybe it was my aunt's anger that triggered them, or maybe it was just a bad day overall, but I'd had enough. I finally snapped, and what I said to them wasn't how a daughter usually talks to her parents, unless those parents are as awful as mine. I told them, I didn't go because I'm tired of hearing you two squawk like broken parrots stuck on entitlement mode. I didn't tell Aunt anything, she's smart enough to figure out on her own how awful you all are. Unlike my brother, who needs his fiancée to write him a script for every sentence he speaks. And as for you two, I don't even know what to say. At least before, you had an excuse, because my brother could throw a football. Now, the only thing he's good at is saying yes, dear to his overbearing wife. If his old teammates saw what a doormat he's become, they'd chase him through the locker room with wet towels. They told me I owed my brother and Daniela an apology for skipping the wedding and causing drama. But right after saying that, I hung up and blocked them all. I haven't apologized, and I don't plan to. But things got even stranger last week. My brother and Daniela returned from their honeymoon, and apparently there were problems during the trip that made him start questioning things. Apparently, during their honeymoon, Daniela kept bringing up the wedding, specifically how glad she was that I hadn't been there to cause problems. My brother said at first he agreed, but she wouldn't let it go. According to him, Daniela spent much of their honeymoon talking about me, analyzing my motives, coming up with theories about why I changed my appearance, why I skipped the wedding, and what I might do next to get attention. My brother said that by the end of their trip, he was exhausted from talking about me and just wanted to focus on his marriage. But every time he tried to change the subject, Daniela brought it right back, rehashing how my drama had affected her wedding experience. According to his friend, the same one who told me all this, something clicked in my brother's head during the honeymoon. He was ready to move on and focus on other things, but Daniela just wouldn't stop. They ended up having several arguments, and by the time they got home, they weren't on good terms. They're not separated yet, but my brother can't stop venting to Fred about how living with her has already become a nightmare, only weeks into their marriage. He says she's obsessed with me and can't let go of the topic, even though, in a way, she already won, since I didn't upstage her wedding and stayed away. The strange part is that my brother's finally starting to break through the illusion and see her for who she really is. Maybe my parents will too, eventually. I always knew my sister-in-law was waving a dozen red flags. That's why I've decided to permanently cut off my immediate family. I used to think that once my brother stopped being the golden boy athlete, my parents would stop playing favorites. But clearly, they just calmed down a bit, until they found another way to put him back on a pedestal. Update 3. The biggest development is that my brother and Daniela are now having serious marital problems, partly because of all the wedding drama involving me, but also because new issues have come up that are turning my family upside down. My brother's been spending a lot of time at a sports bar venting to his friend. Honestly, if you've been married less than a year and you're already having this many issues, that should tell you something. But if his wife doesn't tell him they need to separate, he can't think for himself. Apparently, Daniela's obsession with me didn't end after the honeymoon. She's kept bringing me up, analyzing my social media posts, and speculating about my motives behind random life decisions. My brother said she checks my profile every week to see if I've updated my photo or work information. She even looks through my limited posts and comments on everything I share, even totally mundane things like a picture of a book I'm reading or a restaurant I visited. The breaking point came when I posted a photo from a work conference, just a professional picture with some colleagues. Daniela saw it and spent the entire night telling my brother that I was clearly trying to show off my new look and get attention from men at work. That's when my brother finally grew a spine and told her he was sick of hearing about me, that he was genuinely worried about how obsessed she'd become. That led to a massive fight, where Daniela finally admitted the real root of her obsession with me. She told him she once had a friend in school who, like me, was the ugly duckling. This girl was much less attractive than Daniela, and Daniela liked having her around because it made her feel prettier and ensured all the boys paid attention to her. But as they grew up, that friend went through a transformation. She developed, joined the track team, and started getting noticed. Eventually, Daniela's boyfriend dumped her for that friend. No, he didn't cheat, he simply left Daniela for her. And although that friend never actually dated him afterward, and they eventually stopped being friends, the damage was done. So, yes, a whole lot of unresolved trauma has been living rent-free in my sister-in-law's head. None of this changes how I feel about my parents, my brother, or Daniela herself, but at least it explains why she's so mentally unhinged. Still, it's not normal. My brother keeps complaining to his friend, and from what I know, there's still no talk of divorce or annulment. But he's married to a woman who's obsessed with his sister, which is both strange and disturbing. And it's even worse knowing the obsession stems from some petty teenage jealousy. It doesn't fix anything, but honestly, I'm just glad I skipped that wedding. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that broken record named Daniela. She must be unbearable if my brother has to run to the bar every week just to vent about her. What I'll never understand is why he doesn't just leave her already. Maybe she's got magic powers, or cooks really well, because otherwise, I just don't get it. Update 4. Yes, it's me again. Fred managed to get some pictures of Daniela's ex-friend, both from back then and from now. Funny thing is, she doesn't look anything like me. She's taller and has red hair. I don't know why, but I expected her to look similar, like that might have triggered Daniela's jealousy. But after seeing her public profile, I started to wonder if Daniela's obsession with me has also transferred to her old friend. That's actually how Fred knew her name. My brother found out after Daniela started talking about her, too. From what I know, Daniela still talks about me, but since my brother moved back into my parents' house during their separation, he hears less of it, though not entirely, because she still texts him constantly, accusing me of doing the same thing her old friend did, stealing her partner, or whatever fantasy she's spinning this week. My parents are completely miserable about all of this, because the rest of the family keeps saying, "We told you so." Apparently, some people had already been whispering for a while that Daniela didn't seem like wife material. I want to believe this separation will eventually turn into a divorce, or at least a proper dissolution, and that my brother won't be stupid enough to agree to something like couples therapy with a woman this unhinged. But then again, knowing him, anything's possible. Update 5. And I was right, my brother is an idiot, a big one. I just reread my previous update, where I said I hoped he wasn't that dumb, but I take it back, he's worse. He actually agreed to couples therapy, and she even started individual therapy to work on herself and save their marriage. You might wonder, did it work? No. It failed spectacularly, as expected. Daniela's ex-friend, the one she's obsessed with, is now married and has a child. And Daniela got so fixated on her again that she started messaging the friend's husband, thinking she could steal him as some kind of revenge or way to even the score. Instead, the husband told his wife everything, and the friend immediately contacted my brother to let him know what Daniela was doing. Now they're in the middle of a full-blown divorce. Maybe I won't miss their next wedding, but honestly, I probably will, because all of them are still completely cut out of my life.